Welcome to Integrations Made Simple, a demonstration of how the Cloud Connectors integration platform as a service can work for you. I'm Ben Carroll, Director of Customer Experience at the Cloud Connectors. You can find me on LinkedIn at Benjamin I. Carroll and on Twitter at TCCBIC. So who are the Cloud Connectors? The short answer is that we are the only integration platform as a service that is focused on the HR space. HR technology is evolving at an incredible pace, where once there were just a few core suite players to choose from, now there is a veritable cornucopia of options to choose from in every niche and sub-niche. If you're building custom workflows for your team or helping clients integrate multiple platforms, or if you have a service offering which you would like to connect to your client's existing HR stack, the possible combinations you'll have to consider are nearly unlimited. When you are designing and building the workflows that the HR professionals in your team or your clients' organizations rely on, you'll find that people will have chosen the best options from all the available offerings. And remember, in this context, the best options isn't always objective. The client's needs are unique and specific, and they're going to choose the options which work best for their needs today. This puts more power and flexibility at your disposal than has ever been the case in the HR sector. And with all that power comes great responsibility. And in this context, the most important thing to think about is how to get all those systems to talk to each other in a way that will ensure that the workflows you're designing not only get the job done, but do so in a friction-free way that ensures that everyone, from candidates and recruiters to hiring managers and HR executives, are able to complete the tasks that they need quickly and easily. So how do you get all these systems to talk to each other? There are different ways to accomplish this goal, but in the end, the best option is to use a cloud-based iPaaS, or integration platform as a service. Of course, you could go your own way and build custom point-to-point integrations for each system that you need to be able to connect. But this is a dangerous road, fraught with potential challenges. In addition to the complexity of setting up those connections, in order to maintain them, you'll effectively need to set up a new division in your IT organization, which will own those custom-built integrations. If that's the business you want to be in, that's understandable. We're in that business, and we love it. But your core business isn't maintaining integrations and worrying about the nuts and bolts of the process. Your business is about building elegant, friction-free solutions that allow your customers to focus on their own core businesses. When you go with a cloud-based integration provider like the Cloud Connectors, you not only get to focus on your core business, but you also get to take advantage of our modular approach. In many cases, you'll find that we have connectors for most or all of the systems you're looking to integrate, and we can rapidly build any connectors which we do not have. Further, rather than building each integration as a point-to-point connection, you can think of the system as more of a hub and spoke connector that allows you much more freedom to make changes easily and safely in the future. For example, you or a client of yours may have an applicant tracking system which needs to connect to a tax credit verification system, background check provider, virtual interview provider, psychological and skills assessment vendors, and more. If you ever choose to switch out that ATS for another, using custom-built point-to-point integrations would mean that you would need to rebuild each and every one of those connections. With a cloud integration provider like the Cloud Connectors, you can essentially swap out the ATS, connect a new one, and with little exception, keep those other connections up and running just as they were. Building with the Cloud Connectors using this model will help you accelerate your integration projects, build reusable components, and make sure that you and your clients can focus on your core business while we move the data that enables that business from point A to point B. Now, I've talked about the advantages of cloud-based integrations as a service, but I've referred to the Cloud Connectors as an iPaaS, or integration platform as a service. What's the difference here? Of course, we at the Cloud Connectors can run your integrations as a service, and you never have to know how it works if you don't want to. The power of our platform, however, means that you can take ownership of your integrations at any time, and you can make changes and updates whenever you need to. All that functionality in your hands? It's easier than you might think. Let me show you how our platform works. Here in the Cloud Connectors console, you can see that I've got a short list of items available to me. A couple of organizations, Acme and ValleySoft, and a few environments. Organizations are effectively a collection of environments for a client or a partner, and the environments are where you actually define and develop your workflows and where the resources are allocated to allow those workflows to execute. Most Cloud Connectors clients have just one organization, but multiple environments. For example, one for development and one for production. Implementation consultants or partners who manage integrations for multiple clients may see multiple organizations as well, or have all their client environments within their own organization, depending on how they wish to manage things. Let's say I am working with a couple of partners who are getting started with one. One is ValleySoft, and they're just ramping up. The other is Acme Incorporated, who provide background check assessments, which are part of their clients' candidate review workflows. Acme is set up to accept a bulk load of orders overnight, and then push out status updates for all open orders daily. I'm working on building a solution for a couple of their customers, Customer A and Customer B, right now, so we can see staging and production environments for those customers on my list of available environments. The Cloud Connectors take security very seriously. It's why we maintain our SOC 2 security compliance, and it affects our product design decisions all the way down to user interactions. Not only is each environment isolated and any data stored encrypted at rest, but at every level we have role-based access. If I look at my list of organizations, I can see the listing for each partner's organization, but I've only been granted access to manage the Acme org. Diving into the org management screen, I can see a range of settings, as well as options for creating new environments and managing the user list. If I click on the Options button for a given user, I can remove them or edit their listing or contact information, or edit their roles at the organization level. We can see I'm actually an organization owner, but a configuration change is just a click away. If I go back to the environments level, I can see that I've just got login access to ValleySoft's environment, but within the Acme org, I can manage any of their environments. I can change settings, review resource allocations, and grant access or change access levels for anyone who has been invited to the org by the organization's administrators. In this case, I'm the only one in the environment, so I could add one of my colleagues as a member. And then give him limited access for just the features he needs. If I want to grant access for just a limited time, I can specify the end date here as well. Now, I'll actually log into my environment, and we land on a simple dashboard that allows me to see recent activity and evaluate my metrics. This is a great way to keep a finger on the pulse of my integrations, as any challenges to smooth and reliable execution of my workflows will be visible here, whether unforeseen edge cases are impacting my error ratio, or if the volume of data is increasing to a point where I need to consider augmenting the available resources. We can see all that here. And speaking of resources, we saw those in the Environment Administration menu, and if we go into the Settings menu, we can see them there as well. Right now, all I've got in place is a small resource, ready to start executing my workflows. In some cases, that may be enough, but we can scale to whatever you need. For example, are you just uploading one file per day with 100 to 150 new hires to be pushed from an ATS to an onboarding system? That's great. We can set you up with a single micro-resource that can handle that for you. Are you uploading your full list of 150,000 employees to be run through our net change engine so that any adds, updates, or deletes can be pushed into your client's payroll system at midnight to be completed by 1 a.m.? Awesome. We can set you up with a single large instance that can plow through that solution. Are you doing hundreds of transactions per minute during seasonal hiring, during which applicants in your ATS are not only applying, but taking skills assessments, completing tax credit checks, and more? Outstanding. We can set you up with a handful of small instances that can handle every one of those tiny transactions in real time, no matter how high your volume peaks. And these environments can be set up in our data centers around the world. If you have data residency requirements, let us know. We can help you build a solution that works, no matter how geographically diverse your enterprise is. So, for purposes of this demonstration, we're looking at Acme Background Checks Incorporated, using the cloud connectors to connect our system to our client's HR technology stack. But this all could apply to a direct customer connecting a network of HR applications, or for an implementation consultant building integrations for a wide variety of platforms. In all of these scenarios, you're going to design and build a handful of simple to complex integration workflows that you want to be able to reuse for your clients who have similar profiles in terms of their HR processes, or different divisions within your own organization. So even if they don't all use the same platforms, there's a common base upon which you can build each custom-tailored solution. The scenario we're looking at is an iCIMS applicant export, to be converted into objects that Acme can understand and import that candidate information as orders for background checks. Acme has just gotten started with the cloud connectors, and with some help from our service team, they've already built and tested the parts, as we can see here in the Workflows menu. So let's go ahead and take a look at them. Let's start with the load portion, which brings the extracted data into Acme's servers. Because the end customer wanted to get up and running quickly, the focus of the Acme and Cloud Connectors teams was to prototype this portion of the connection to connect, using our generic REST connector to connect to Acme's public API. This is a great way to get started, but for any integration that you're going to use more than once, the idea is to work with us to productize your connector. As you'll see a little later in this demo, our connectors hide a significant amount of complexity, allowing you to configure instead of code in order to build your connections. It's easier to stand up your solutions, easier to maintain them, and to scale your offering so that anyone who needs your service can configure the connector, give you a call, and get started as a customer. The good news is that Acme's Smart Connector is in process and will be ready to go in a couple of weeks. But Client A couldn't wait, so we're going with this solution. You can see that we've got a workflow that's going to accept data that's already been massaged to be in Acme standard format, do some final validations in some custom JavaScript code, and then push the incoming content via a REST API to Acme's system. Finally, we log all of the information we need via our data health, success, and failure nodes. We've built this, and once we've tested it, we can bundle it up and use it for our next integration. This is one side of the hub and spoke model that we talked about earlier in the presentation. On the other side of this integration, we're getting candidate data from iCIMS. It's a relatively simple flow. All we do is set up some environment variables, connect using our iCIMS Smart Connector to get the data we need, run our transformation using our cloud data language, and hand off the massaged data at the end of the workflow. Looking briefly at the iCIMS Smart Connector, we can see some of the simplicity in the configuration. You just tell us what you need from a system, again, using our cloud data language, and the Smart Connector does the work. We've also got a query editor to help you easily select the parts you need. And if you, or your client, uses custom fields in the system you're connecting to, that's no problem. You can just choose the option for a custom schema and go into the schema editor to add the fields you need to the object in question. And it's not just that this configuration is nice to look at, it really does reduce a significant amount of complexity. The data structure you're requesting may look simple, but what you're getting in one simple request may actually require dozens or even hundreds of calls against the API of the system in question. Our smart connectors do all that for you, quickly and efficiently, and respecting all of the target platform's API limits. I'll just go ahead and add the field I've just created to my configuration here, and then I can save those changes. Now that we've configured and saved that, we can build a wrapper workflow that will start with the export side of the equation then bridge over to the import into the servers over at Acme. Set up your schedule, and you're good to go. So let's walk through that process. If I go into my nodes list and choose the subflow node, and drag 2 of them into my new workflow, and then I connect them up, and I'm 30% of the way there. Next, I configure each of the subflow nodes to refer to the flows we just walked through. First, the iSIMS export to get to the Acme canonical format, and then the import into Acme's servers. Finally, I mentioned I want a schedule for the workflow to run, so I have to install the triggers pack, and once I've done that, I can drag in the schedule node into the workflow and connect it. If we look at the schedule node, we can see that there's a default schedule in a cron tab format, and we'll leave it like that for now. But there are other options for scheduling as well that allow you to pick days, times, or frequencies from a more user-friendly GUI. Save it, and we're ready to move on to the next step. And now that we've got these working parts, we can export all of it, either in combination or in pieces, from our environment, including all of the necessary workflows and collateral components, and wrap it up into nice, reusable bundles. For go-live purposes, you could export everything as a single bundle, but since I know I'm going to be using the load side in a different integration soon, I'm going to export the parts separately. First, I'll do the import into Acme, and then the export from iSIMS. Each time, I choose the workflow I need, as well as the associated configuration components. I've downloaded them to my desktop, so I'm ready to move on. I'll switch over to Client A's production environment, go into the Bundles menu, and drag and drop them to get them into place. And we can just follow the activation guide. For a more complex activation, this summary page can be fully customized using Markdown to show all necessary instructions. But for purposes of this demonstration, I know that all I have to do on the Acme side is drop in some credentials and I'm good to go. Activation screen, check my settings, save and deploy, and I'm ready to move on. We'll do the same on the iSIMS side. And do a quick check of our query editor. Then save and deploy. And we're ready to build the wrapper workflow again and set it to execute. And with that, now you've got another spoke in your wheel. Not only can Acme reuse their import workflow, but they can also reuse their iSIMS export workflow anytime they have another customer with a similar setup. So now, Acme has a new client who uses Taleo Business Edition as their applicant tracking system. We know that the Acme side of the equation is going to be the same, so we'll go into the Client B environment and import the Acme load workflow. We could import the iSIMS workflow and modify it to make a TBE workflow, but it's just as easy to create the flow from scratch, so let's do that. Create a new workflow, install the necessary packages, Taleo Business Edition, utility, transform, then load the packages into the workflow, connect them, and then configure the nodes as necessary. I won't do that whole process here, but once those details are complete, you can build your wrapper workflow, and now you've added a spoke to your wheel. One more offering you can reuse with minimum effort. How many other platforms could Acme build connections to with the cloud connectors? Well, How many platforms are there out there? Now, for the last few minutes, I've been putting together conceptual workflows, and I'd like to switch to a pre-built workflow that connects to real systems. Here, we can see an end-to-end Workday to Smashfly workflow that has all the parts in one flow. While we would typically recommend a more modular approach, the nice thing about this flow is you can see all the parts at once. If I run this workflow right here in my staging environment, we can see it going into the queue, setting up, and running all the way through, end to end. If I want to see one particular part of it, I can put a debug flag on a node, and when I run it, I can see all of the information on the input and output side of the node I'm debugging. And if I look at the Requests tab here, I can see that the query we've made in Workday generates 506 requests. If we look at the actual query, it looks simple. Job posting data, requisition detail data, a few fields from each of them. But if you were to write this request, you'd have to build logic to determine each and every one of those calls, as they're all necessary. And all of that complexity is now totally behind the scenes for you. The rest of the workflow should look relatively familiar, with the biggest difference, other than the connectors being productized on both sides, is that this workflow leverages our powerful and flexible net change engine. Otherwise, we've got the same tools in play: a smart connector to do the extraction, cloud data transformation nodes, some custom functions for additional necessary logic, and our data health nodes logging our successes and challenges. Since we've run our workflow a few times, we have some system information available about those runs. We can take a look at our logs, and better yet, at the data health report. Why do I say better yet for the data health report? Because it's searchable and sortable at the record level. So if you're getting errors, you don't need to paw through raw logs to find when an error occurred and in which run. You find your errors, click on the execution ID, and you're taken right to the log where things happened, and you can dive in and find the issue if you like. So, now that you've seen how the system works, I want to revisit a couple of things we've touched on, because they're important takeaways. Before the demo, I mentioned that we've got a really strong security focus here at the Cloud Connectors, and I think it's worthwhile to bring this back into focus before we wrap up. Of all the things you might be willing to compromise on, security should not be one of them. Whether it's your data or your client's data, it has value beyond measure. This is true in any area of a company, but especially so in the HR tech stack, where the amount of private, personally identifiable information is significant, to say the least. If you want to know for certain about a company's security focus, look for this logo. A company which has achieved SOC 2 compliance is one that's on your side and is dedicated to protecting your priceless data. Take a look at each of the categories that this covers: privacy and confidentiality, security, processing integrity, availability. Which of these would you or your clients be willing to sacrifice to save a few dollars? The answer should be none of them. Your team, your employees, your clients, your company relies on HR data being handled with the utmost care, and that's what the Cloud Connectors will do. And finally, our value proposition. Our slogan is "Integrations Made Simple," and we mean it. That's our promise. With the Cloud Connectors, if you want to help your clients build friction-free workflows, or if you've got a service that needs to integrate into your client's HR stack, or if you're building an HR stack for your own organization, these are things that we do in order to keep that promise. We've got the platform focused on HR integrations. You don't have to build your own platform or adapt a generic integration platform to suit your needs. If you're looking at this sort of in-house development, you're looking at tying up a development team for at least a year. Then, with each new vendor you want to connect, you'll need to develop and maintain those connections. At the Cloud Connectors, there's a good chance we already have the connections you need, And for any that we don't have, we've got the expertise to build and maintain one quickly and easily. One of the things we hear from partners who are moving from an in-house system to the cloud connectors is that rolling out a new implementation, even on a previously solved problem, is arduous work. Our tools and methodologies will ensure that every customer you add to your list will have a quick and easy rollout. Finally, there's the cost of ongoing development and maintenance. The world of HR technology never stops moving. Everything you build today will need to be scaled, improved, updated, and maintained in order to ensure that it continues to deliver. Unless you want to make integration a core part of your business, doing so will become a distraction from that core business. Building everything yourself makes integrations challenging. Let us make integrations simple for you. Thank you for your time.